Last time on Dude, You Haven't Played This Game.
Well, what I'd like to say is... Wait a minute. Did it get dark for you guys? Or just me? What is that? Looks like that enemy ship from Blaynix. Oh, it looks like they're letting me go. Hey, wait a minute. Is that what I think it is?
And now we continue our journey through space.
Okay, how I got into space is confusing at best, but why I'm staring at a freaking R-Wing right now? Pfft, that's anybody's guess.
You could probably just chalk it up to bad writing.
Who said that?
Over your intercom, dummy. Hit the red button.
Ah, okay. So, this button right here. Okay. Alright, if you can hear me, hi. Who are you, and how do I get home from here?
Well, it's a long story. Ugh, but not as long as that intro. What's your damage, man?
Okay, enough. Who are you already?
Oh, my name? Well, I'm Fox McCloud.
Holy barrel rolls! I'm talking to the Fox McCloud! That's amazing!
Yeah? For who? You or me?
Wow, okay, you're kind of a jerk.
Don't forget, drunk.
And drunk. Wait, why drunk?
Because everybody hates my games and that jerk Panther stole my girl. Life is the worst.
Dude, don't say that. I mean, I can only speak for me, but I've loved almost all of your games.
Even Star Fox Assault?
Wait, people don't like Star Fox Assault?
Star Fox, also sometimes known as Lilat Wars or Starwing depending on your region, is a long-standing series of games with anthropomorphic animals flying in spaceships called R-Wings, taking out all sorts of flying enemies. Well, at least that was the first game in the franchise. Essentially, it's Star Wars crossed with furrydom, and honestly, it's fantastic. At least, in my opinion. Anytime a new Star Fox game comes out, I buy it, regardless of their supposed quality one way or the other. Call me a blind fanboy, I suppose, but Star Fox is easily a top 5 franchise for me. But regardless of this, I'm still pretty honest with myself about my opinions on Star Fox games. So, what exactly happened to the Star Fox series? And what does that have to do with Star Fox Assault? Well, it's best that we start off from the beginning. Much like several other Nintendo-based franchises, Star Fox has always been kind of a technical playground for Nintendo to try anything they wanted to, and boy did they ever. Initially, the focus was placed on showing graphics on a console that people didn't think were possible, namely Star Fox and Star Fox 2, with Star Fox 64 becoming more of an evolution of the initial concept. That 1997 N64 title kicked things up a notch by adding in a new vehicle called the Landmaster, giving gamers the ability to drive something other than an R-Wing. Star Fox 2 did implement the aptly named Chicken Walker, or simply put, just the Walker, but since it never officially released back in the mid-90s, Star Fox 64 can technically take the achievement here. Regardless, the gameplay focus was almost entirely on-rails based action, meaning the game screen kept the action moving but the player controlled the shooting, dodging, and aiming. Aside from this, there were some all-range mode sections, typically in the boss stages. The camera no longer carried gamers anywhere and travel was much less restrictive, allowing players to fend for themselves movement-wise. The takeaway here is that Nintendo was working with the strengths of just making a tight action experience and a visual powerhouse, improving each title incrementally in regards to that core concept. But it seems Nintendo wanted to dramatically shift Star Fox into a new direction, one that has left fans polarized for years. In the late 1990s, Rare, better known as Rareware to its fans, was Nintendo's all-star second-party developer who helped the company carry the Nintendo 64 through its difficult life cycle. They were working on their newest game, Dinosaur Planet, which was becoming another unique and exciting release. It's been documented that there were mixed feelings within the developers' camp regarding Nintendo's shining star, Shigeru Miyamoto, and his suggestion to add Fox McCloud and the Star Fox team to Dinosaur Planet. Rare was already known for long development times on their games, but these delays proved to pay off big for Nintendo in the past. By adding a recognizable franchise to the original IP, Nintendo and Rare hoped to boost sales figures for the otherwise unrecognizable title. Development would shift to the upcoming Nintendo Gamecube console, producing Rare's final finished console game for the Big N under the title Star Fox Adventures. This game was part Zelda, part Star Fox, with the player taking on Fox's role on foot for a large majority of the playtime, with flying missions tossed in sporadically. This 2002 released game saw Fox McCloud traveling to the prehistoric planet known as Soria. The game also introduced Crystal, a vixen with telepathic abilities who is investigating the destruction of her homeworld Serenia and the murder of her parents. She gets mixed up with the big bad of the game, General Scales, who ends up getting defeated in the end thanks to Fox and his friends. At this point, we're so far removed from the origins of the series, it almost felt too difficult to grasp, but one of the things I liked about Adventures that nobody talks about is the incredible job of universe building that it did. The planets and solar systems you fly through in the earlier games actually existed, and there's a possibility these planets had a vast array of characters to interact with. So, what does this have to do with Assault? Well, most of the complaints that people had about Star Fox Adventures involved playing a Star Fox game that, quite frankly, wasn't a Star Fox game, just someone else's dinosaur-themed Zelda-styled adventure game with Star Fox characters crammed into it. But despite this, I loved it. I was a big Zelda fan at the time and was totally cool with the developers trying new things out. In the end, Adventures was a nice distraction, but I still really wanted another crack at a game that focused on the R-Wing and Landmaster battles. But before we move on, can we talk about how amazing Fox's fur looked in Adventures? I remember staring at this title screen and being absolutely blown away at how realistic it looked.
You checking out my fur? What are you, some kind of furry?
Hey now, I'm not a furry. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but let's all agree that everyone's furry for Crystal.
You leave her out of this!
You mean like how she left you out of her?
Ugh, gross. And well played, clerks.
Wow, you really are drunk if you think there's two of me. And let the record state that I'm not even supposed to be here today!
Though the origins of the franchise relied on pushing graphical capabilities more than anything, this scheme began changing when the Nintendo DS was released. Jumping past Assault, Star Fox Command made it obvious that the graphics were less important and play control was the biggest factor. Gone was the intensely detailed fur, and in its place we had a more simplistic color palette and design for the Star Fox gang. Command utilized a lot of ideas from Star Fox 2, which made sense, considering Nintendo brought back Dylan Cuthbert into the development picture. An alumni of Argonaut Games, the co-developer of the original Star Fox and Star Fox 2, Dylan's new development team, Q Games, brought the knowledge and know-how to create a game with heavy references to the latter of those two games, regarding the map and movement layout, along with encountering enemies. This drove home the bite-sized gameplay that made this a solid entry gameplay-wise in the Star Fox franchise, well, at least in my opinion. With the stylus, gamers could control almost all functions of the ship with the touchscreen instead of just using the standard buttons that they've been used to playing with. Apparently players had issues with Command, but nothing could touch the seething hate that Star Fox Zero received. A Wii U release that basically retells the Star Fox 64 story had its fair share of criticism with fans, mostly about the controls. Requiring fans to both utilize the television and the Wii U's touchscreen gamepad was a way for Nintendo to try and show fans that there was a new way to play Star Fox, and well, I'll just let Falco here tell you how most gamers felt about the game, present company included.
Ah, dang it! Ah!
So on one side of the R-Wing, we've got Star Fox Adventures pushing the graphical boundaries like the old days with a style of gameplay that divided fans. On the opposite side, though, we've got Nintendo going hog wild with controller-based gimmicks. One could argue that Star Fox 64 created this, but the improvement to analog stick-based movement was clearly the best move the franchise could have made to secure its future. It's easy to see why Assault got lost in the shuffle. Star Fox Assault attempts to return the franchise back to its roots while adding a few new modes of gameplay, with the focus being put back squarely on action. But is this space-based shooter worth another trip to the Lilat system with Fox and company? Star Fox Assault was released in 2005 thanks to a partnership between Nintendo and the fine folks at Namco, specifically the team that worked on the well-received Ace Combat 2 on the PlayStation. Nintendo had been working with Namco on a few arcade collaborations, particularly with Mario Kart, and it was clear that their strained relationship from the past was healing. During the late 1980s and throughout the 1990s, Namco had issues with Nintendo's borderline monopolizing policies, and after the NES era, Namco didn't put out much content on their consoles for 2 whole generations of games. However, the Pac-Man developer had a different vision for this new iteration. Gone were the Zelda-influenced melee weapon attacks, and in its place was a bigger focus on combat and less on exploration. When we start up Star Fox Assault, we're given several choices after hitting the start button on the Gamecube controller. There's the single-player story mode, a multiplayer versus, and options. It's in the options that you'll want to pay attention and possibly play around with your controls because there's a few things here that will make or break the game for many players. Star Fox Assault has 3 main types of gameplay: Pilot, R-Wing, and Tank, which can easily be summed up by running and gunning, aerial and space combat, and lastly, driving missions. Namco designed 3 control methods for each of these, which were created to hopefully match the player's comfort level with the controller. Now, the Gamecube controller is notorious for its oddly shaped buttons, but those who can adapt easily shouldn't have an issue. While the dual analog stick control method works great for many people, I personally preferred using the option all the way to the right. This allows me to run constantly with the R button, turn with the left analog stick, fire with the A button, use the Y button to jump, and use the C stick to change weapons with a flick up or down. This control scheme worked really well for me, but it did take a bit of time to get used to it, especially when it came to rolling away from attacks with the flick of the L button or accidentally sending myself into strafing if I held it down. Perhaps the pressure-sensitive analog shoulder buttons should have been swapped out so that they did something else, but after a little bit of time, I got used to the controls pretty quick. The story mode is the area where you'll be spending most of your time. It's about 10 missions long, with each mission ranging between 10 to 15 minutes in length for the earlier ones, or 45 minutes to an hour depending on how fast you are and where you're at in the game. I was pretty slow with the missions as it's been a while since I finished this game, so getting back into it was like playing it for the first time.
Team Star Fox, ready for duty.
Leave these losers to the pros. We'll beat them in no time.
General Pepper has the Star Fox team going after the nephew of the previous big bad of the franchise, Andross. But while Andross looked and sounded like a total badass, his nephew, Andrew Oikony, not so much.
No quarter! Show these dogs we mean business! Think you're tough, eh? In that case, it's secret weapon time! Stealth Squadron, open fire! Ah! Persistent little pests, aren't you? I am the one and only true heir to the great Emperor Andross! The new Emperor, Andrew Oikony! Uncle Andross!
I mean, whoever named him was spot on.
Ugh, he is such an Andrew.
Careful, you might lose all those followers with the name Andrew. You know, all one of them.
Star Fox's team is now comprised of Fox McCloud, Falco Lombardi, Slippy Toad, and Crystal. While you only play as Fox in this game, you'll often share the screen with the rest of the characters, both in and out of your ships. Peppy Hare is now more of a second-in-command behind General Pepper, who seems to, be melting or something. I'm not quite sure what's going on with General Pepper's face here, but it's kinda unsettling.
Ugh, he looks like a dog that turned into a raisin and then turned back into a dog again.
I've got no room to comment. My eyes don't even move.
Voice acting in this game is, well, how do I put this? I think hit or miss is the best way to say it. Sure, this is just Anthro Thunderbirds minus the creepy puppetry, but the level of cheese is pretty high here. For the record, I realize how ironic it is that I'm accusing Assault of being cheesy when I often quote Star Fox 64's first boss on an almost monthly level. Plus, I love cheesy voice acting. It's just goofy and silly. But how do I put this? Andrew Oikeni is by far the most awkward sounding and annoying character, so I guess they did their job right. I gotta ask, did Falco's New York accent always exist, or did it show up in this game?
Eat this, scumbags!
Falco! Wow, that was a flashy entrance.
Quit complaining and climb aboard, will you?
All right.
Hey, just do me a favor and try not to fall off.
Hey, just worry about not getting shot down, okay?
Not a problem. Hey, Sure Shot, get out your blaster and take care of our admirers, will you?
Maybe we just seriously envisioned him with it, and the developers thought, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Like, am I the only one who thinks this is the perfect voice for him? I've gone and listened to the other versions, and while there was a little bit of accent in Star Fox Adventures, it was here on Assault that it really shone through. I mean, look, even in the manual, it looks like he's going, hey, how you doing?
Oh, what? You disagreeing with me? Listen, I ain't got time for this. I gotta go to a Mets game, eh?
Oh. Sorry. Your accent was so bad it put me to sleep.
Previous Star Fox games before Assault were landmark graphical masterpieces, and while Assault can hold its own here, I don't think anything about it specifically has blown me away, both back then and now. I even ran the game in progressive scan mode and couldn't tell much of a difference aside from some slightly sharper resolution. The amazing focus on lifelike fur seems to have taken a back seat to laser in on making larger, expansive worlds to travel through. The scenery looks great here, with a strong use of darker palettes of purple and green, sunset reds, and crisp, clean blues. The animation for the facial movements of each character aren't as strong as they were in Adventures, but regardless, they still look great during the cutscenes. Set pieces are the more important thing to oogle here, in particular the scenes involving Fox on a ship blasting away enemies as you fly around on the wing. Between the sheer number of enemies on screen and the frame rate mostly sticking at 30 frames per second, Assault looks great on the Gamecube. But I think I prefer Adventure's focus on impressive facial animation. Plus, that fur. The sound effects and music on Star Fox Assault are fantastic. While I'll always have a soft spot for the more rockin' styles of Star Fox 1 and 2's soundtracks, Assault brings in a lot of electronic elements back into the music and combines it with a full symphony, performed by the Tokyo New City Orchestra, and they do a damn good job. Composed by Yoshi Arakawa and Yoshinori Kawamoto, these tracks are some of the best in the franchise and really highlight the power that a full orchestra can bring to the sound quality. Personally, my favorite track in the game is Oikeni's Fleet, also called Waltz of the Storm. When it comes to weapon variety, there's not much to do when flying. There's the standard laser power-ups and bombs that can be acquired and upgraded in the R-Wing that have been in the game since the original. 1-ups appear fairly frequently, which is good because you'll be dying a lot in this game. When you die, if you haven't made it far enough into the level, you have to start over from the beginning, which honestly happens quite often. However, I will say this was mostly my fault as I was pretty rusty with this game. Rings can be picked up that give shields, and health drops are often spread throughout each map. Speaking of maps, on the bottom right-hand side of the screen, you'll have a circle-based map that is fairly easy to navigate, though there may be times where it's easy to get lost, since differentiating between floors is a bit impossible here. Also, if the enemies are too far away, it can be difficult to figure out what needs to be done, but the other characters do a good job of keeping you up to date with what's happening. Just like in other Star Fox games, you'll need to assist in saving your teammates from destruction, and this helps earn more medals at the end of the level. There are additional barriers that can be triggered while on foot if collected, along with a wide assortment of weapons. You start with a blaster that can be charged up, but the charge feels like it takes forever. This adds power onto the charge shot so that you can take down more powerful enemies in case you run out of ammo with the other weapons. Machine guns, grenades, proximity sensor bombs, sniper rifles, homing launchers, and Gatling guns are all at your disposal depending on what you pick up. Enemies typically drop these when defeated on foot, and I don't recall a time where I constantly ran out of alternate weapons. There's also parts of missions where you ride on someone else's R-Wing and blast away ships and other enemies with a plasma cannon. Thankfully, this gun has unlimited ammo. I remember having a harder time with the weapons back when I first played this game, but this time around I found myself being able to lob and connect with grenades much easier, and the sniper rifle was simple to use despite me sometimes getting the buttons a bit confused. Most levels balance out to be a specific pattern. Levels are either strictly flying or a balance between vehicle and on-foot style. I think I actually prefer the frantic nature of the on-foot missions, especially in later levels where Fox will be running around trying to find an R-Wing or a Landmaster so he can rescue his friends or bat down the enemies. There's usually a progress bar on the top left to see how many enemies are in the flying portions. The more enemies means the bar fills up, and if it reaches the end, you have to start over and it counts as a life used. But running around then jumping into an R-Wing just brings new life to the game despite the repetitive nature as to why you're on foot. It's almost always to lower a shield or lower defenses of the enemy so that the ships can take out the big bad of the level. On foot, you're relying on the map to find the larger enemies marked with a red icon, and when those are cleared out, the next portion of the level loads. However, in one level, it was frustrating because I had to run and find an R-Wing right on the complete opposite side of the level, all while navigating the maze-like nature of the stage layout. Despite this, I felt like it really kept me engaged in the action. Star Fox Assault's story is really exciting and a fresh breath of air for the franchise that continues after the previous game. Shortly after Oikone's defeat, we learn that a race of part machine, part bug-like creatures are invading planets. The aliens, known as Aporoids, are led by the Queen Aporoid and take over planets, causing life and world decay at every interaction. Fox and his team are later joined by none other than their rivals, Team Starwolf, led by Wolf O'Donnell and featuring Leon Pawlowski and newcomer Panther Caruso. Now a trio, Starwolf joins forces with the Star Fox team to take out their new mutual enemy. It's clear that Panther was designed to be a romantic foil to attract Crystal's attention, and the thing is, Fox is clearly preoccupied with the Aporoid War.
Damn you, Panther! Damn you!
Hey man, there's other vixens in the, forest?
No, not Crystal. She was the one.
There's no one who could ever love me like you love me. I remember how it used to be.
What's happening?
There was no stronger love.
What is this?
And now I can't believe I was only too blind to see that your love is inside of me. And now I don't have anything at all. Every night I think your sun just passes by. Why you left your love and how it made me cry. Now that I find I don't know what to do. My life is so empty alone without you, I don't know what I'll do without you, girl. Without you, my love is in your hands. There's nothing left to live for. There's nothing left to do without you. Without you, I don't know what I'll do without you, girl. Without you, my love is in your hands. There's nothing left to live for. There's nothing left to do without you.
So, it says on the internet that apparently Star Fox Command's endings are not canon, so Crystal never ends up with Panther. So you did this song for nothing. You feel better?
Now, in my opinion, Andros never really felt that intimidating in earlier Star Fox games, but the Aperoid alien bug race is clearly Star Fox Team's greatest foe. Namco completely knocked this out of the park regarding the risks of the antagonist towards the protagonist in this story. The drama and tension are at the highest levels the franchise has ever seen, at least up until this point. I'm trying not to spoil things too much, so just trust me on this one. I think the only way it could be topped is with a prequel showcasing the betrayal of Pigma towards James McCloud and Peppy Hare, but now I'm just geeking out all over myself. Either way, I felt like Assault was a riveting sci-fi tale. Regarding multiplayer, the Star Fox series has implemented dogfighting against your friends since Star Fox 64, and while that game kept things simplistic yet totally fun, Star Fox Assault offers more choices for vehicles in combat, but I don't necessarily know if that makes it a better multiplayer experience. The easy jump in and fight nature of Star Fox 64's versus modes really enhance the overall game's lifeline. While Assault tries to carry that over, it feels a bit more convoluted because of the different play modes. There's no joy in blasting away someone with an R-Wing who is stumbling around in the game on foot, and same goes for the tanks. Fortunately, there are levels that only have pilot deathmatch or flying deathmatches, but when the level offers all three, most of those extra gameplay options got ignored during my multiplayer sessions. You can pick between Fox, Falco, Slippy, and Crystal. Overall, not the shining star of the game in my opinion, but I am also not a huge multiplayer fan in general, so please keep that in mind. I feel like the controls are this game's biggest hurdle for some people, but with plenty of options, you're sure to find one that's right for you. Star Fox Assault brings the goods with top-notch story and characters, exciting level design, and incredible orchestrated music. While the movement can be a bit floaty and frame rate junkies will complain about the lack of 60 frames per second, this didn't matter to me. I walked away from Star Fox Assault the second time around reminded of how much I really loved the game, and how it stood out among the franchise as being one of the games that kept me coming back for more, despite the level choices being non-existent. Gone are the options to play better to unlock a different branching path, but in its place is a cut-and-dry game with 10 entertaining and challenging missions, multiplayer, and even survival mode, where you can try to finish the story missions without getting a game over. Phew, talk about a challenge. Star Fox Assault, for me at least, might be the example Nintendo needs to look at for the future of the franchise, because everything since has been a step in the wrong direction. This one comes highly recommended.
Feeling better after that puke fest?
Ugh, you know, I gotta get my life in gear. And you've shown me that even though there may be gray skies, there will always be sun that comes out and parts those clouds. And for that, I want to say thank you, JonTron.
I'm not JonTron.
Oh, sorry about that, Gerard.
Nope, not him either.
John Riggs?
Wow, really?
Boogie?
Dude.
Sorry, looks like I'm out of fat white guys with facial hair.
Mike? Maybe you heard of me as Mike Tendo? Dongled? Dude, you haven't played this game?
Never heard of you.
Never mind, I'll figure out my own way home.
Thanks to all Patreon supporters, but especially the Morningstar Whip tier and up. They are Sam Schaefer, Scott McElhone, The Autistic Gamer 89, Nintenjo, Bryce, Derek Demitter, and Trevin Adams. Your continued support helps fund reviews just like this one, which would simply not be possible without the donations from Patreon members. I appreciate each and every one of you for continuing to help me make the content that you want to see. Classic, goofy YouTube video game reviews. If anyone is interested, just $1 down gets you access to exclusive streams on Discord, director's cut commentary for episodes, regular updates on upcoming reviews, and more. Check it out at patreon.com/dongled. I hate to sound like a typical YouTuber, but if Patreon is not your thing, but you still want to help to get the word out, share this video on social media, like it if you like it, subscribe if you're not. Exposure really helps, so if you like these videos and think your friends will too, sharing it with them means a lot. Want more Dude You Haven't Played This Game? Check out the videos enclosed below. You can click on the left-hand side or the right-hand side for a totally different but totally awesome review. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on Dude You Haven't Played This Game.